blast. Cheating the government lands one minibus driver in a heap of trouble. And China's Tu Youyou accepts her Nobel Prize in Medicine. Good evening, thanks for joining us. Police are on the hunt tonight for two men in connection with a small explosion outside the Legislative Council last night. Police say the blast, which happened after debate was delayed on a controversial copyright bill, was caused by a modified gas canister. Owen Fung reports.
Signs of last night's explosion outside the legislature. Yesterday, lawmakers were scheduled to discuss the controversial copyright amendment bill. But the meeting was adjourned because of a lack of quorum. And a protest outside LegCo by internet activists against the bill was cancelled. But at around 8:30 in the evening, a rubbish bin in the LegCo protest area was set on fire and exploded. Bomb disposal officers collected evidence in the early hours this morning. Police say the explosion was caused by a modified gas canister. After reviewing security camera footage, authorities are now on the hunt for two male suspects. Both are said to be slim and about 1.7 meters tall and were wearing face masks. Police say they fled the scene shortly after the blast. Authorities are calling it arson. The LegCo Commission held an emergency meeting this afternoon to discuss the incident. Meanwhile, some lawmakers also came out to condemn those responsible for the explosion. Democratic Party lawmaker Emily Lau, who is also a member of the commission, says people are welcome to protest in the LegCo demonstration zone as long as it's peaceful and non-violent. But we condemn any acts of violence, she said. Another commission member, Ip Kwok Him of the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong, believes it's difficult to require people to go through security checks before they enter the protest area. Keyboard Frontline, the netizen group that had planned yesterday's protest, says the police have been in touch with them. The group maintains it has nothing to do with the incident, adding the rally that was cancelled has been rescheduled for next week.
I do not think that the next week's protest will be out of control. And I do believe that everyone that come will respect us and know that what we are here for and won't deliberately do destructive acts.
And LegCo President Zhang Yuk-sing said there will be a police presence near the LegCo protest area next Wednesday when lawmakers debate the copyright bill. Owen Fung, TVB News.
A minibus driver has been arrested after being accused of ripping off the public transport fare concession scheme. Police say the driver used 21 octopus cards for the elderly to pay for non-existent passengers. Evelina Lung with more.
Police arrested the 49-year-old minibus driver in Wong Tai Sin. They found on him 21 octopus cards for senior citizens. According to the police, the arrested man is one of the drivers of an overnight minibus service between Shangshui and Kuntong. He allegedly bought many elder octopus cards and used them to pay for non-existent passengers. And he allegedly did so to claim subsidies from the government under the $2 public transportation fare concession scheme. The Transport Department found something suspicious during its regular checks and referred the case to the police. Tang Wai-ying, Chief Inspector of the Commercial Crime Bureau, said the octopus cards in question were used more than 7,500 times within 6 months. And this involved government subsidies totaling $150,000. Police say their initial investigation found no evidence of accomplices in the fraud. The standard fare for the Shangshui-Kuntong route is $22.50. For the elderly and the disabled, they only have to pay $2, and the minibus company will get paid the rest from the government. The company operating the minibus service said the drivers get 30% of the government subsidies. The person in charge of the company insists they did not know about the driver abusing the scheme. He said they simply cannot count how many senior citizens make use of the fare concession scheme each day. Evelyn Lang, TVB News.
Australian police say 5 people are facing terrorism charges as part of an ongoing investigation into an alleged plot to attack a government building in Sydney. Officials said the arrests were not related to a new terror threat, but rather linked to a plot they previously uncovered that prompted a series of raids in Sydney last December. A 20-year-old man and a 15-year-old boy from Western Sydney were arrested and charged with conspiracy to prepare for a terrorist act. 3 other people who are already in jail on other charges will be facing new charges in connection with today's raid. Negotiators at the climate conference in Paris have released a new, shorter version of an international accord aimed at fighting global warming. But as Alan Booknia reports, key issues still remain unresolved before a self-imposed Friday deadline.
After 11 days of face-to-face negotiations, the conference host, French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius, presented the slimmer but still troubled climate agreement. Fabius said that while significant progress has been made, nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. The biggest issue remains who shoulders the cost of moving the world to a low-carbon energy system and how nations should be prompted to accelerate efforts. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry announced that Washington will double its contribution to $830 million by 2020 to help vulnerable nations adapt to the effects of climate change.
We are prepared to do our part, and we will not leave the most vulnerable nations among us to quite literally weather the storm alone.
Developing nations have been demanding more money as they struggle with increasingly extreme weather events.
We are not here begging for sympathy. We are here because climate change threatens our survival as small island developing states and our economic stability.
At issue also is whether advanced developing countries such as China should join wealthy nations in helping the poorest and most vulnerable. China's representative, Xi Shenhua, said Beijing is willing to work to find common ground. Environment advocates say now is the time for the hard choices to be made.
They are on some of the really big issues that are going to determine whether or not this is a watered-down agreement or if this is a foundational agreement that the world should stand up and applaud.
Alan Booknia, TVB News.
The British government says it has no plans to ban U.S. Republican presidential hopeful Donald Trump over his comments about Muslims, despite a growing backlash. Trump has proposed that all Muslims be barred from entering the United States following last week's deadly shooting spree in California by 2 Muslims. Authorities said the couple had been radicalized. At last count, more than 370,000 Britons had signed an online petition demanding Trump be banned from entering the UK. The government must consider a petition for parliamentary debate if it reaches 100,000 signatures. London Mayor Boris Johnson said Trump is clearly out of his mind if he thinks a ban is acceptable. Britain has an estimated 2.7 million Muslims among its population of 65 million. This year's ceremony to hand out the actual awards to Nobel Prize recipients was held in Sweden today. Among those receiving their Nobel Prize was Chinese medical scientist Tu Youyou for her discovery of a new therapy against malaria. She shares the prize in physiology or medicine with 2 other scientists. The 84-year-old attended the ceremony in Stockholm. Tu is the first person from China to receive this award and the 12th female to win the prize. The same ceremony was held in Norway, where this year's Nobel Peace Prize winner received their award. It went to the Tunisian National Dialogue Quartet for their role in the building of a pluralistic democracy in Tunisia after the 2011 Jasmine Revolution. Members of the international medical group Doctors Without Borders demonstrated in Washington yesterday. The group is demanding an independent investigation into the October 3rd U.S. airstrike on a trauma center in Afghanistan that killed 22 civilians, including 12 medical staff. The military admits it was a mistake. U.S. President Barack Obama apologized and ordered an investigation. The doctors delivered a petition to the White House signed by more than 545,000 people from around the world. Back locally, on Monday, Hong Kong's new competition ordinance will go into effect. The new rules are expected to have a big impact on business practices. As Ronnie Samtani reports, an employers group has decided to stop publishing its salary proposal this year over concerns it may soon be illegal.
It's that time of the year. Many workers want to know if they're going to get a pay rise in the new year and by how much. Several organizations conduct surveys and publish salary forecasts. But with the new competition law in place, could this constitute indirect price fixing? Reports say the Employers Federation of Hong Kong recently sought legal advice and decided not to publish its annual salary adjustment survey. That's because the Federation fears it will constitute serious anti-competitive conduct and violate the new regulations. Federation of Hong Kong Industries Chairman Stanley Lau noted that many organizations may not be familiar with the competition law. He said releasing guidelines on salary adjustments shouldn't have a big impact. Lau explained that various chambers of commerce have done so in the past, but it doesn't necessarily mean individual companies have to follow them. Unionist lawmaker Lee Chuk-yan believes salary hikes have nothing to do with price fixing, saying the labor market is not governed by the new law. Lee added that the Competition Commission's guidelines state that collective bargaining between employers and employees will not be considered a contravention of the ordinance. According to the guidelines, the exchange of sensitive information relating to price or price strategies and production costs could harm competition. Doing so could be seen as indirect price fixing, which would be a violation of the competition law. Ronnie Samtani, TVB News.
In sports, a great night for the two London clubs in the Champions League. As Tony Sabine reports, Arsenal posted a memorable win in Athens.
The Gunners needed a big win against Olympiacos in their final group match to make it to the last 16, and they pulled it off in dramatic fashion. Olivier Giroud scored a hat-trick, the last goal from the penalty spot, and Arsenal came away with a 3-0 win. They finished second in Group F ahead of Olympiacos.
It's a special night for us because, as we said before the game, we are in an escape mode, before the game, and you needed something special. And when you can deliver something special, you can create a positive memory for the rest of the season. Maybe it's a lucky year for us in the Champions League, you never know.
And Chelsea shrugged off their domestic woes by topping Group G. At Stamford Bridge, the Blues scored a 2-0 win over Porto, eliminating the Portuguese side.
The thing that I'm more happy with, apart of the result, is the fact that we need 1 point to qualify. And the players, they accept the challenge of play to win. And that is not easy when the moment is so bad, when the results are so negative, when the pressure is so high. And they were brave to accept that challenge.
But former Manchester United standout Gary Neville failed in his first challenge as Valencia manager. His team was beaten 2-0 by Lyon. So it's the Europa League for Valencia. Tony Sabine, TVB News.
In the NBA, James Harden was unstoppable as he helped the Rockets shoot down the Wizards. Harden snapped a tie here in the third quarter with a jumper. He finished with 42 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. Corey Brewer added 15 points. John Wall had 26 points for the Wizards in a losing effort. The final score, Houston 109, Washington 103. Brazil's sports ministers played down fears his country's political and economic turmoil would affect next year's Rio Olympics. George Hilton insists there is enough money to complete various projects, but with the Games less than 8 months away, Brazil is dealing